It's easy to dismiss a place like the Winchester Mystery House as just another tourist trap. A quirky, oversized mansion with secret passageways, staircases that lead to nowhere, and a strange, sorrowful backstory. But to those who've spent time inside its walls, especially after dark, it's more than an architectural oddity. It's a place where something lingers, something unfinished, much like the house itself. The story begins in the 1800s, thousands of miles away in New Haven, Connecticut, where Sarah Lockwood Winchester was born into a life of privilege. She was intelligent, refined, fluent in multiple languages, and married into even greater wealth when she became the wife of William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, the same company whose rifles earned the nickname the gun that won the West. For a time, Sarah's life was charmed, but it didn't last. In 1866, Sarah and William's only child, a baby girl named Annie, died just weeks after birth from marasmus, a wasting disease with no cure. The grief was unbearable. Then, in 1881, William himself succumbed to tuberculosis. Within 15 years at Corsi, Sarah Winchester lost her entire immediate family, and with that, something in her broke, or perhaps something awakened. Now a widow and heiress to a staggering fortune, nearly $20 million and a controlling stake in the Winchester Company, Sarah found herself paralyzed by grief and guilt. Friends said she began to withdraw from society, turning to spiritualism for answers. Seances were common in that era, but Sarah's interest ran deeper. She reportedly sought out mediums, desperate to understand why she had been cursed with so much death. One medium, whose name has been lost to history, gave her an answer she never forgot. The deaths in her family were a consequence of the blood money earned from Winchester rifles. Thousands of lives had been taken by the very weapons that made her family rich, and the spirits of those killed, Native Americans, soldiers, outlaws, innocents, were seeking vengeance. According to legend, the medium warned Sarah the spirits would never stop unless she began building a house for them, a sanctuary, or perhaps a prison, for the dead. If construction ever stopped, she would die. In 1886, Sarah Winchester left New Haven behind and traveled west, all the way to the Santa Clara Valley in California. There, she purchased an unfinished farmhouse on the edge of San Jose and began what would become one of the most bizarre construction projects in American history. For the next 38 years, construction on the house never stopped. Not for a single day. Carpenters worked in rotating shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There were no blueprints, no master plan. Sarah would give instructions by hand, sometimes scrawled notes left overnight, sometimes verbal commands that changed from the week to week. Rooms were built, then sealed. Staircases went up into ceilings. Doors opened into walls. There were skylights in floors, windows looking into other rooms, cabinets that stretched far deeper than the house's outer walls would suggest. Whole wings were constructed and torn down again, seemingly at random. One stairway climbed 7 steps, turned, and then descended 11 steps, only to arrive 2 inches above where it started. The house grew and twisted into a sprawling maze. At its peak, 160 rooms across 6 acres. But it wasn't just strange. It was deeply unsettling. Workers began to complain of odd noises at night, footsteps in empty halls, knocking from behind sealed doors, sudden cold drafts in rooms with no windows. Some claimed to see figures in black, just out of view, Others swore they heard weeping, whispering, or distant gunshots echoing through the walls. Several left and never returned. Sarah herself rarely spoke of the house. She lived in near isolation, wearing black mourning clothes and a thick veil even inside. She ate alone. She slept in a different bedroom every night, never telling the staff which one she'd choose next. Some say it was paranoia. Others believe she was trying to outwit the spirits she thought were following her. Spirits she believed were always watching. And then there were the seances. Though much of Sarah's life was shrouded in secrecy, several maids and workers later claimed she held a seance in the Blue Room every night at midnight. Alone, she would enter with a small candle and lock the door behind her. She would stay for exactly an hour. At 2 a.m., the bell in the tower would ring, but not for the living. The staff knew never to speak of it, never to question it. Sarah's directions were clear. If the bell rings, don't go near the tower. Don't open any doors. Don't speak. In public, Sarah was rarely seen. When she did leave the house, she rode in a carriage with black curtains drawn. Children in the neighborhood told stories about her. The witch in the mansion, the ghost lady. They'd sneak up to the fence and dare each other to peek through. Some swore they saw faces in the windows long after the sun went down. Not just Sarah's, others. Faces that weren't human. In 1906, the Great San Francisco earthquake struck, collapsing whole sections of the house. The front wing, once the most opulent part, was reduced to rubble. Sarah survived, trapped in a room for hours before being rescued. Afterward, she ordered that part of the house sealed off entirely. Windows were boarded. Doors were nailed shut. Some say she believed the earthquake had been caused by the spirits. Angry she'd made the house too grand, too comfortable. She shifted her construction after that, focusing on narrow hallways and dead ends. Less comfort, more confusion. By the 1920s, the house had become legend. Locals whispered that the woman inside was mad, a recluse driven insane by grief. But others believed she was something more, a medium, a prisoner, or even a gatekeeper to something older and darker. The house had become a living entity, fed by fear and ritual, and Sarah, in her own way, was its caretaker. On September 5th, 1922, the hammer finally stopped. Sarah Winchester died quietly in her sleep at the age of 83, leaving behind a house with over 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, and dozens of rooms that had never been entered. Her will was written in 13 parts and signed 13 times. No heirs, no clear instructions, just a mansion built for the dead. After her death, the construction stopped immediately. Workers dropped their tools mid-task. Some rooms remain exactly as they were left, nails half-driven, paint half-applied. The house was eventually sold and turned into a public attraction. But the strangeness never left. Visitors began reporting odd phenomena almost immediately. Cold spots in warm rooms, disembodied voices, shadow figures drifting through hallways. One caretaker claimed she saw a door slam shut with such force it cracked the frame, in a room with no windows, no air currents, and no one else inside. Tour guides spoke of lights flickering, footsteps following them on tours, and sudden, overwhelming feelings of dread. One even fainted in the Blue Room during a midnight walkthrough, swearing later she'd seen someone or something standing in the corner, watching her with hollow eyes. Even skeptics find the house unnerving. Its design is disorienting. It's easy to get lost, even with a guide. Time feels strange inside. Some rooms are icy cold even in summer. Others are warm when they shouldn't be. People report feeling watched, touched, followed. Cameras malfunction. Batteries die suddenly. And that bell tower? No one knows how to access it anymore. The staircase is gone. The room below it sealed. But on certain nights, if you stand outside the house at 2 a.m., you can still hear it ring. No one knows for sure what Sarah Winchester truly believed. She left no letters explaining her motives, no diaries revealing her thoughts. Everything we know comes from observation, rumor, and the testimony of those who worked for her. But one thing is clear. Something drove her to build that house. And whatever it was, it never left. The Winchester Mystery House stands today, not just as a curiosity, but as a monument to grief, and possibly to fear. It's a place where architecture meets the supernatural, where the line between madness and haunting is paper thin. To walk its halls is to step into the mind of a woman who may have believed she was building a maze, not just for ghosts, but to keep herself alive. And if you listen closely, deep in the dead of night, some say you can still hear the sound of hammers, echoes of construction, echoes of fear, as if, somewhere, the house is still building itself.